Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're looking at Foundation Episode 4 titled Barbarians at the Gate. I wasn't planning on doing a recap and review for this show, but then I realized that I am really liking it, especially after Episode 3's ending. And I thought, you know what? Out of all the shows I cover, this is probably the one that needs a recap the most, since it can be so confusing. There's so much political talk and there's so much scientific talk that, like, at times you could just be lost. So I thought, you know what? If any show's needed for a recap, this is the one. Before we get into episode 4, please make sure to like this video if you end up enjoying it, and please make sure to subscribe like you can follow new movies, TV shows, video, all that stuff here. And so like I said, at the end of episode 3, I thought, you know what, the first 3 episodes were good. I thought the cinematography was just, like, astounding, like probably the best aspect of this show. Really impressive, probably one of the best I've seen in a while. And so at the end of episode 3, it just seemed like, wow, next episode is probably going to be some action. As we saw, we have the Arachnian invaders coming to Terminus, and I thought, okay, now we finally get to see some action. We get to move away from the political talk. We have a lot of setup, and maybe we'll actually have some payoff. This episode, it doesn't really go the way I wanted to. It feels more like a standoff than anything, but there is still a lot to talk about and a lot that happens, so let's get into it. So the episode starts out with a narration focused on Brother Dawn. The narration kind of says a lot, but it's pretty much just saying that the masses can be predicted, but for the individual, it will always be up to chance or whatever that individual wants to do. You can't really predict an individual's movement, just the masses. Right after that, Brother Dawn jumps off a building, but he's caught by some sort of kinetic energy. Once he's caught, we see that some flower girl named Azura is watching, and Dawn kind of like notices her watching. And that's sort of how the beginning ends. We then cut to Brother Day, who's trying to smash some girl, you know, and but I guess he can't be touched either because of that kinetic energy. So he dares her to come touch her. She comes to touch, and the kinetic energy sort of stops her. So he says, like, do it slower, and she's able to, like, touch him once she goes slower. And then they're like about to smash or whatever, but he's interrupted. Someone tells him that there's been a death of a Proxima, and now there's, like, this contest for leadership that's challenged. I think this is what we saw in the very beginning of the show. This is sort of confusing. In the first, like, 5 minutes or so, we see this old man, I guess that's the Proxima, who is about to die. So he's trying to, like, put his leadership to this woman. I don't know if that was the girl robot or not. I don't know if I'm just looking back and they look similar. Or does he have clones of himself, like, all about the universe or the Reach? Because the old man that Proxima looked just like the clone. So I'm just confusing that. If you guys know, just let me know. But I guess that's what that contest of leadership is, because that old man, the Proxima, told the girl, or the girl said, like, they won't accept me as the leader, and he was like, they'll have to. Really confused about that. That's why I kind of left it out at the beginning. But we'll circle back to that. So now back on Terminus, we see Salvor has told the Arachnian invaders that they're not supposed to be here. The Arachnian invaders kind of force her to take her to this tower, or they're saying take us to this tower. Salvor is able to trick them by taking one of the leaders through the force field and taking her towards the vault, which is the force field that will ultimately knock out the prisoner, but doesn't knock out Salvor, since she has that ability to, like, not get knocked out by it, right? She's able to touch it, as we've seen in other episodes. So the prisoner gets knocked out, and they start to interrogate her. Salvor notices that this prisoner, the Arachnian invader, has this artificial eye, and she's able to determine that this was caused by the Empire's attack on her planet. She's also able to find out that her family must have died on the planet, and that she also wants to die. And she finds out that she's also this grand huntress of Arachnian. So as we see in this part, Salvor again has these abilities to, you know, see into people's past, or she's able to know. I don't really know how to determine or describe it. I don't want to say that she knows a person's past or future, but she's able to use luck. She goes into it sort of saying it like she's flipping the coin. She's able to guess heads and tails, and she's like, after a certain amount of time, luck isn't luck if you know something. Like, she's using math. I don't know how to describe it. But she's able to somehow determine this stuff. And I think she's also taken aback by how she's able to find this stuff out. Like, she shouldn't be able to know this prisoner's past just by looking at an eye or looking at her. So some member of the Foundation tell her to sort of stand down, just keep following Harry Seldon's plan. Harry Seldon is the Jared Harris character that we see in previous episodes. And they sort of go into how maybe Salvor isn't part of his plan, while Hugo and her parents and some others believe that maybe she is the plan. You can't really figure it out, right? Like, because Harry Seldon, we'll never know, since in episode 2 at the end we saw that he died from his prodigy, Gale. We never really got to see the falling out of that. We had kind of been doing this time jump. This is obviously in the future from that episode. I sort of like the time jumps at times. I think for the clones and the rulers, the Empire clones, I think it's cool to see them go from dawn to day to dusk and all that stuff. But for some other things, like with the Gale and Harry Seldon's character, I do wish we would follow that storyline because I really do enjoy those characters maybe the most of everyone. We then see Lewis, who's a person of some importance to this Foundation. He's like the tall, annoying guy, if you remember him. He tries talking to the Arachnian prisoner, and he tells her that Harry Seldon's plans are still in place and his formulas are still in action. I don't know why he told her this. If you guys know, please comment down below. In my last Foundation video, you guys told me a lot about the book and everything about it, and kind of really made me appreciate the show more. So just anything you guys can tell me about what's going on here with Lewis and the prisoner, just let me know. So now the Arachnians are approaching the settlement. They're sort of like building this cannon, ready to attack it. As one of the guys said that if she's not back in a certain amount of time, then they're going to blow up the whole town. So now they're preparing for that. So Hugo calls for backup and Salvor comes. But she sort of has this like hallucination while she's on the way there. She hallucinates that this young boy is in an Imperial library, and the young boy is threatening her with a knife. She believes this is the vault telling her to sort of stay away, and she tells Hugo that. This is again just another scene that sort of is telling us that Salvor has these weird abilities that nobody else has, and she's just very different. She's obviously unique, and she's very important to what this story will end up being about. We then cut to Brother Day, who's getting mad at some mathematicians who've been studying the works of Harry Seldon for decades now. I think it's like 35 years, they said, and they still haven't figured out his work. So he's getting pissed at them, like really mad. And I like how we're able to see this sort of like angrier Brother Day, this angrier ruler that we haven't seen yet. There's like real terror with him. Maybe like the people actually will fear him. Like he gets mad, and I'm actually like scared to watch what he's going to do. I think it's a good element. We then see Day start to argue with Dusk. And he sort of blames Dusk for the destruction of the two cities and the Star Bridge. This is where I started to like the whole time jump thing. This is where I started to realize it. Because it's cool to see that Brother Dawn in the beginning episodes, the kid ruler, he's now Brother Day now. And we're able to see that like what he saw as a kid, the destruction of the Star Bridge and the two cities, that was so traumatizing for him. We're able to see that sort of come to life now as Brother Day. We're able to see that traumatization come into play and how he will use that as a ruler. And as we can see, it's not good because he's becoming this angry ruler. And so he sort of blames Dusk for that, but he says that he can still save their legacy. The robot lady, what's her name? Demerzel or something like that, sort of warns him that they cannot act on impulse. And so then at the end, this is how the episode ends. The invaders sort of have a cannon aimed at the town, ready to blow it up. The prisoner asks Lewis who is in charge here. She sort of goes into detail about why they came to Terminus. They're looking for items that will help them find a new planet that's habitable for them. Ever since the Empire destroyed their atmosphere, they've been looking for this sort of like navigation model to help them find a new star system. So that's what they came to Terminus for. We also see Salvor tell Hugo that she thinks the Arachnians are up to something bigger than what they're doing here, and she thinks the vault is somehow connected to Harry Seldon. Obviously, this will all connect somehow in a way, but I still have no idea. She also says she saw Harry's library on Trantor in the visions, and then Hugo sort of wonders if Salvor is part of Harry's plan or not. And then the last shot is we finally see Gale, who I said was a prodigy of Harry Seldon. We see her hovering in her bubble ship in space, and there's like another ship that comes out. And that's how the episode ends. I was really excited to see her. I was like, oh my god, we can finally see, like I said earlier, I want to go back to that time. So it brings us back, and then it just ends. So I was like, alright. So a few other things happen. Like we see Dawn is watching Azura, the one who watched him fall off the building with the kinetic energy. And then he wants like this plant or whatever. There are also a few other conversations between Day and Dusk. He sort of asks why he didn't listen to Harry Seldon, that the movement of his is still alive today. And then there's a little bit how there's communication has gone down in the outer reach and they want to investigate it. Those are some other little things that were discussed throughout the episode, but just things that I either didn't think was that important or I was just confused about. So I'll give you guys my rating for this episode right now. I'm going to give it a 3.6 out of 5. I did enjoy it. I don't think it was as good as episode 3 or episode 1. I do think it was a little bit better than episode 2. But I don't blame you guys if you thought this was the worst episode because like it's just like I said in the beginning, I think I was expecting some more action. I'm sort of want this show to go a different route. I keep comparing it to Game of Thrones, but this is political stuff sometimes, right? The talk, it's like very political with the empires, and we have to go to the outer reach and all this stuff. So it sort of feels like Game of Thrones, but like in space. And I think that'd be such a cool thing. But the thing that Game of Thrones had that this show doesn't is sick, relatable characters. That's what Game of Thrones had in the beginning, right? Foundation doesn't really have any sort of relatable or cool characters. Even like Salvor is cool. Harry Seldon is cool. The Empires and the clones as a general, as a group, is such a cool sci-fi concept that I really enjoy. But like, you're missing out on a couple, interesting things that Game of Thrones had. I don't want to just compare to Game of Thrones because that's one of the best shows of all time. I think Foundation does have the right formula to be something great like that. It's just missing out on a couple of marks, It doesn't really balance the action and the politics as well as Game of Thrones did, right? And this episode didn't really do much or explain much. Like, I get it, we're still in the early beginnings of this. We're still in episode 4, so I don't want to just start, giving out all these accusations about the show yet. But it's just, I think we need to start answering some questions, or at least leading to some real conflict. Because I thought with the Arachnian invaders, we would be leading to some sort of battle or action, at least at the end of episode 3. Now I'm really thinking we have to see in episode 5. Because if we don't see any sort of battle or some sort of real conflicts, I'm going to be a little bit angry. Because at the end of this episode, it sort of ends like episode 3. Like, okay, something big's about to happen. The cannon's aimed at the town. We're about to see a battle or something, right? At least a fight. But again, this episode is more politics talk. So we find out more about Salvor. Just continuing to reiterate that she has some sort of abilities that nobody else has. Is she part of Harry Seldon's plan or not? We cut at the end. We see Gale. Nothing's answered about why she killed Harry Seldon or anything like that. I actually have to go back and rewatch the episode, I think. But let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did you not like it? How you feel about the show in general? If you stuck with me to the end here, thank you very much. I sort of had some troubles with this video, and that's why it's sort of sloppy. And my thoughts, I'm kind of like mad throughout. I was literally recording it, and then my recording would just end, and my stuff wasn't saved. So throughout this video, I'd be saying stuff like 5 or 10 times. I was literally getting so mad. My laptop died while recording. I literally had to go back and delete all this stuff just to save up space. I guess I didn't have enough space. I know you guys probably don't care about that, but that's why this video is sort of a little bit sloppier. I couldn't really get my thoughts across because I was just mad. But thank you for sticking around like always. Please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Please make sure to subscribe if you're new here. And thank you, and I'll see you guys in the next video.